So I'm going to go ahead and get us started, and we'll just admit more people as they come in. This is also being recorded, so we're going to be emailing all the participants, whether they showed up or not today, or were able to make it or not, or come in late. We'll also be posting that to our YouTube channel and social media channels as well. So today we're here to talk about conquering the culture code, the impact of culture on learning. And this is a microlearning course through NMSU Global. So a few details just to give you all a heads up and a kind of background about the course. Enrollment is already open. You can enroll at any time. The course starts now or anytime you want. You can join anytime. The course length is 8 weeks. It is self-paced and it's 100% online. The cost is $400, and you can enroll at this link, which we will also put in the chat as well throughout the course or throughout our time together today. So I would like to introduce you to Rachel Portillo, and I'll let her tell you a little bit about herself, but she's going to be doing the main part of the interview.
Awesome. Thank you, Lori. As Lori said, I'm Rachel Portillo. I'm an instructional designer here at NMSU Global, and I've been working with Lisa on her series of courses for the last few months, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Before we go on to other introductions, I just want to make a point to introduce Colleen Cleveland. She's one of our newest team members on the instructional design team, and specifically the microlearning side of our house. And she will be basically responsible for our recording and monitoring the chat. And so we just really want to give her some credit and shout her out here. Yay, Colleen. And I'll pass it to Lori to introduce her wonderful self.
My name is Lori King. I am a marketing specialist at NMSU Global. I have a very eclectic background myself, but I have earned 2 digital badges, and I'm going to get into that in a minute, in NMSU's microlearning courses. So whether you already have a degree, whether you're working towards a degree, whether you're long past your degree, microlearning is a great way to get in-demand skill sets and training and earn a credential and a badge for that, which I'm going to discuss now as well. So microlearning, this slide is to kind of give you guys a basis in language for our talk today, and for understanding what we're talking to you about today with this virtual open house. Is really about the culture code microlearning course. And so microlearning courses at NMSU Global Campus are designed specifically to be short-term. And they're focused on very specific skills and competencies, and they can stand both independently or, as I said, complement your degree. Now, micro-credentials are a form of certification that validates the attainment of a specific skill set or a particular field. Now, unlike traditional degrees where you're typically required for a broader-based education, micro-credentials focus on a particular competency or skill, making them an excellent option for individuals who want to gain expertise in a particular field quickly. Now, a digital badge, this is the credential awarded to the individual upon completing a specific learning program, such as a micro-credential, and it's a visual representation of your acquired knowledge, skills, and competencies. And then you can share this digital badge across your professional networking sites, social media platforms, and even online resumes. And I know when I received my digital badge, I was able to, they gave me great instructions on how to add it to, like, Indeed on a resume there. They gave me instructions on how to add it to LinkedIn. So it's a great aspect in that sense as well. So I'm going to kick it back to Rachel, and she's going to introduce our expert and guest speaker or course instructor now.
So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Lisa Lewis. We've been working together for months, as I've mentioned before, and she's all around just an amazing person to work with in creating these courses. And I'm really grateful to have been in partnership with her so early on in my instructional design career, and to consider her a mentor and a friend in education. And so, as you can see from this slide, Lisa has 35 years of experience in leading the field of education, from being in like a pre-science teacher and going all the way into college courses, and having been a tutor for 25 years, where she's fostered relationships with students from their childhood well into their adulthood. She has a master's degree in education from the University of Maryland, And like I said, she's an expert at creating these kinds of courses. And so I'm so excited for you to get to meet her and to get to share her immense knowledge in this field. So Lisa, without further ado, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what's your background in this field, and what led you to creating the Culture Code?
Well, thanks, Rachel. Well, like Rachel said, I've been an educator for 30, I think it's actually a little bit more than 35 years. And I began with teaching preschool 3- and 4-year-olds. I did that for quite some time. And then I moved on to elementary school, and I worked specifically with 3rd and 4th grade. And after that, then I taught college level students who were interested in becoming teachers. And like Rachel said, I tutored all grade levels for many, many years. And I have a huge interest in culture and how it affects learning. And when I was presented with this opportunity to write a course about culture, well, of course, I jumped at this opportunity. And I've worked with students from all cultures, and I feel very strongly that it's important to incorporate culture into all aspects of teaching and learning in pretty much everyday life. I've lived with diversity in my own life. My husband is diverse. My children are diverse. My community where I live is very diverse. So I believe in diversity and inclusion because I live it day in and day out. And I apologize for my froggy voice today.
And so you've had a lot of experience with interacting with diversity and incorporating it into your work. Do you feel like there's a particular degree program for those of us that are in school or considering going back to school that might complement this particular course?
I do. For a degree in any level of education or special education would definitely complement this certification. And possibly even international studies would be a nice complement as well.
Oh, totally. That makes a lot of sense. Now, what about outside of higher education? Do you see any particular industries or maybe job fields or professions that your training would be really helpful in?
Well, I believe, culture, of course, doesn't just appear in the education world.
Totally.
It really is it's part of all walks of life. In jobs, we were just discussing this before we had all of our guests join us, and we were thinking about different ways that we could market this course to businesses and leaders of organizations, and really any profession it would work with, because different cultures of people work for these different jobs. So I think just about anyone could benefit from taking this course.
Totally. And so can you walk us through a little bit of the course and what your vision for it was as a student who may be entering into this course pretty soon?
Sure. Well, students are going to be able to examine terms such as equity, inclusion, culture, diversity, and pretty much how they are perceived by teachers and parents and students. And we'll also discuss like past procedures for including culture into classroom, and as well as those current strategies that teachers are using today, and what may or may not be issues that we have with these specific strategies. And then also the class is going to help to develop some possible future approaches in dealing with all aspects of culture in the classroom or the workplace. And ultimately, it would be really great for students to be able to create a framework which links culture to student learning and transforms professional practice to better meet needs of students or employees.
Oh, totally. And so looking back at some of the development that we did together and thinking about those skills that students are going to be developing, do any particular activities or learning materials come to mind that were some of your favorites to incorporate?
That's a tough question.
Well, think about it. I know for me,
go ahead.
I was gonna say for me, I know I was so impressed by your sourcing of materials from different places, pulling from elementary education, pulling from professional engagement. And then I remember this activity with the sunglasses where your diversity lenses. And I just thought that was such a helpful way of understanding your own perspectives and biases as you enter spaces that are literally like lenses. And sometimes we don't realize how much it's right in front of us and we either ignore it or can't tell that we can maybe take our lenses off or look through someone else's. But does that bring anything for you?
Yeah, I think because I'm writing another course at the moment, my head is in it's really in reference to that course right now, and I'm trying to think back to my other course. But it's our world is just filled with culture everywhere we look, and it's something we obviously can never escape, and we would never want to. But I think it's important that teachers and employers be able to address how culture impacts everything that we do and what we say. And we need to learn to embrace the differences among all of us. And we need to use our differences to grow our minds and teach our children, our grandchildren, how important it is to include, all races and religions and colors and sexes, so that we can all come together and be peaceful and learn to live with friends and those people who might even call themselves enemies. And I think sharing culture should definitely bring a lot of joy, and it should build relationships within communities by establishing trust, so that there's less fear and intolerance and isolation among people. So I welcome all of you that are listening today to come live in my world and experience the diversity that I live with. And I can't imagine living it any other way, nor would I want to. But this conquering this culture code together is such an important part of our world, and it will help to make it a better place to live.
Thank you for that. That truly embodies, I think, the messaging of the course, that we are embracing and not shying away from the unknown if we're unaware of cultures that are different from our own. And so going back to the name, Conquering the Culture Code, the impact of culture on learning, what led you to choosing that name? It's such a strong name of Conquering the Culture Code.
I think that I really, I wanted something catchy, of course.
Sure.
And I do really feel that in order for us to live in this world together, because of all of our races and religions and colors and whatnot, that to conquer it, to really, for lack of a better way to put it, to really come above it and approach it. I think that's why I used the word conquer. I really just wanted to take a hold of it and grasp it and kind of tear it apart, so that everyone that takes the course can better understand what it's like for people of other cultures to, to be part of a job place or a learning place.
That's great. And so when you're thinking of students progressing through your course and getting to this place of understanding, acceptance, and welcoming in this world of diversity, what skills do you think that they're going to walk away with that they can say, I can do this, or I understand this?
Well, I think that students will have a better grasp of what it's like to be part. I mean, we all have culture in one way or another, religion, races, whatever. We're all from different places and different worlds and countries. And I think that what students will really grasp is a better understanding of how to actually live and work and learn with other kinds of people, and to be able to embrace it with open arms.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense to me. And I love to hear that, because I think sometimes, as we mentioned before, we might just feel more comfortable in our comfort zone and in our cultural lenses. And so these skills that you're gifting to students are really going to open their eyes and allow them to continue to open their eyes beyond the course as they enter into new spaces and explore new aspects of life.
Absolutely.
And so is there anything else that you wanted to share, or that you feel like you really want to communicate to potential students who are considering this course?
I think just that, and I have pretty much said it before, that culture is just a piece of who we are as people. And I just think it's so important for people to have an open mind when they come to this course and when they are learning or working. I want people to be able to open up about their feelings and how they feel when somebody says something that's potentially damaging to their culture or traditions or religion or beliefs. And I like I said, I've worked with so many students from so many different countries. And when I taught them, we always brought culture back into our discussions about different topics that we were discussing as they were going through the courses that I taught them. And they really appreciated the fact that I did acknowledge their culture and their traditions and their beliefs. And I think that's so important in all ages, for learning, for employers, and in all school settings as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. To our audience, really quickly, be thinking of some questions to ask Lori, to ask Lisa. And I will just ask you, Lisa, while they're thinking about that, to preview for us some of your course series, because you're developing multiple courses and they build on each other in some ways and they call back to each other. And so again, as they're thinking of questions in this moment, can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration for your course series and how they connect?
Well, I guess I'm just a passionate teacher. No, I love teaching. I love, when I first graduated from college, I graduated with a communications degree, and I went to work for an independent TV station. And what I really wanted to do was I wanted to be a news anchor. And then once I got involved in this independent TV station and I got the opportunity to actually be a news anchor briefly, I decided that I just couldn't, I don't know, I just couldn't do it. I did not like that I could not bring my opinions to the news. Yeah, and it was, you know, it was just something for me where I just had to kind of make a complete turnaround and say, now what do I want to do? And immediately I came up with teaching. And I actually got my master's later in life when I was in my 40s. And my kids were a little bit older, so that, you know, I wasn't leaving them at home as little babies. But you know, I am super passionate about the world of teaching. And you know, I look back at my teaching career, and I worked in a school, a very, very, very poor school in Maryland. And it was quite eye-opening for me. And I'm so glad that I actually worked there, because it gave me a totally different perspective of where students are coming from and how they live and where they live and about their culture and their, it was just very eye-opening. And I decided that not only am I writing this course, you know, did I write this course about culture, but I have written a course also about poverty in education and how poverty affects learning and teaching, and what kind of strategies we can use to help teachers, to help students better learn, and to trust those people who are teaching them. And that when you live in poverty, that's a huge, huge issue that students have, is trust. And it's, you know, there are lots of reasons for that, but I don't want to give that all away.
Just a sneak peek, so that way y'all can get your get your whistle wet, enroll in this course, and then check out the next ones, because Lisa's churning them out and we're creating great stuff over here. That makes me laugh that you mentioned the news anchor inspiration, because when Lisa was recording her videos and I was editing them, I can totally see that. I see you, Miss News Anchor, instructing this course, because you're so professional and you've got your teleprompter and you're speaking to camera. And I was like, I didn't teach her to do that. She did that. Awesome. Well, now I'll open up to questions. If you would like, you can post your questions in the chat, or at this point you can unmute, and Colleen, myself, and Lori will be facilitating and maybe asking some questions too.
I have a quick comment kind of question, and part of it probably as you were talking, Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your heart and passion. It really comes through strongly. And I got thinking to a little bit of how we were talking earlier about the military community and military spouses, and how much travel is involved sometimes in those family settings. And, you know, my first instinct is to think about, you know, if they're traveling to a foreign country and there's a language barrier, but culture brings in so many other elements. So could you speak a little bit more about that as well?
No, I think a lot of what I've learned about culture came from working in that very poor school in Maryland. There were lots of different cultures. There was a very large Hispanic culture from many different countries. There was a very large African culture as well, where French-speaking African countries, and I had to kind of bring back my French that I learned from high school and see if I could remember it. But a lot of it comes from that, but also I was super interested when my husband was teaching the troops about, how not to rock the boat when they land in a foreign country, whether it be the way they speak to people, or I know that in some countries, you basically can't say no at the dinner table to anything, and that's insulting to them. So I was really interested when he was doing that. It just became, I would read all of his little books and pamphlets that he had about the different cultures, because I just found it so fascinating. And my in-laws have traveled the world. They have artwork and artifacts and all kinds of wonderful stories from different parts of the world, and dealing with different people in different parts of the world. And I was just so fascinated by it that I decided that I really just wanted to do something with my interest and my passion about it.
Thank you for that. Do we have another question or one in the chat?
There's nothing in the chat. However, I was wondering if there was an experience that you found most memorable, or that you just, it was maybe heartbreaking, or if it was just delighted you.
I do actually. It was actually a heartbreaking story. So when I taught third grade, I had this adorable little boy whose name was Kevin, and he was from, he spoke mostly Spanish. He knew a little bits of English, and I can't recall what country he was from. I want to say El Salvador, but I'm not positive. And he, during the school year, had gone through a really, really difficult family situation. He had, so he, in third grade, they're like 8 or 9 years old, and he had lost his father about 2 years before I had him as a student. And then in the year that I had him as a student, he lost his mother. And I think because I lost my mother at a very young age, that I felt a real bond with him. And, his uncles and aunts were all kind of rallying around him and trying to help him. And they would come into school, and we would have little meetings with Kevin and his family. And I got to learn, little bits about his culture and his family's culture, and the things that they do just by speaking with the uncles and aunts who were going to be taking care of him. And it really was very heartbreaking for me to see him and how devastated he was by losing both. Now he had lost both parents. And, at the age of 8 or 9, that's just, for me, losing one parent at the age of, I was 9, actually, I had just turned 9, was just devastating. So I can really, I could relate to him. And so I really took him under my wing and helped him and guided him. But I learned so much about him and his culture. And it was really very heartwarming as well as heartbreaking.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think your ability to connect with students really speaks to just your kindness, warmth, and empathy as an instructor. And I think that really shows forward in this course. So thank you again for sharing and sharing yourself so personally, not only here, but also in the course. Do we have any more questions coming in, or from anyone who'd like to speak up or comment?
There's no more questions in the chat, but anybody's welcome to unmute and ask a question or a comment.
Thank you, Lisa, for presenting, and I really learned a lot, so I appreciate. I'm very interested in if you can speak more about, or I don't know if that's the second part of what the course will cover in, like, do you gonna have modules or the sequence, so how that's gonna work?
In this particular course or the upcoming course? This one? Okay. Yeah, so it's each week there's a module that contains a lecture from me and some reading materials, as well as activities, a discussion. Sometimes I have a specific scenario that I give, and I ask students to comment on how they would handle this scenario in a classroom. There are various different types of activities, like Rachel mentioned about the sunglasses and really putting on your cultural lenses to understand and to see, you know, what your biases may or may not be, and how we can get past those.
I think the structure also, just speaking as someone who's been integrated into the course, the structure really lends itself to learners with all kinds of experience. Even if you've never used Canvas before, it's very clear, like, this is where you're starting, this is where you're going through, this is what time you should try to pace for each thing. Even though it's a self-paced course, there is pacing guidelines, so that way, you know, students are able to not up the rigor, but give themselves, you know, a goal to work towards each week or each month, however they decide to pace it out. And Lisa is very communicative with the students, so she'll be able to provide feedback on their assignments and give them guided responses of, I don't know if this is maybe the whole picture of how you should respond to this particular scenario, but let's come back and let's address this together. I've just seen that intention in her planning of the course, so I think it'll be a really positive experience for whoever gets to take it.
I feel very strongly about giving feedback to students about their work and their thinking. And I think that helps them approach their assignments differently after they've read my feedback.
Any other questions? I see from Yvonne, thank you for letting me sit in. I'm intrigued by this course. I'm a middle school educator, and the district I work in is actively promoting a school-wide initiative to create a culture of learning. And I feel like I need to learn more about how to fuse the culture of learning with the cultures of our student population. That is so real. And I happen to know Yvonne fairly well, and I grew up in the school system she's talking about, and I'm aware of that cultural diversity and that school system really needing that active and intentional meshing. And I can speak to your course, Lisa, how much I wish that maybe some of my instructors and my administrators specifically had taken to be able to understand the kinds of socioeconomic and cultural things we were going through in Southern New Mexico.
Right.
So just wanted to affirm your point, Yvonne.
And, you know, we're willing to work with school districts in getting this course to their teachers. You know, we're willing to work with the cost and whatnot as far as, you know, having teachers take this course. So if you wanted to bring that back to your school district, that's definitely something we're interested in doing.
And you're in talks with other school districts, right? Like in Washington, I know you had mentioned that you had some school groups really interested.
Yeah, we have the Seattle School District is very interested in they're in this constant state of flux. I feel like just there's so many administrators moving around and up and down, and so they're trying to work out those types of things, and they're very focused on safety because they had a safety issue during the school year last year. So I think that's right now their focus, but hopefully soon we'll get it in there.
Well, as we wrap up, and as Lori put in the chat, we're going to be sending out the recording and the link to enroll in the course again. I think we can post the link as well in the chat or show the slide. And that'll just be for you to be able to view the course description, share it with other people, and enroll yourself if that's something you're interested in. So I want to thank everyone again. Lori, is there anything else that I missed or we need to add?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of ground, and as you both said, Lisa, you definitely have a passion for this, and I think I love the idea, the feedback that you give to your students, because as we learn, so much of it sometimes it's just a different perspective, and that kindness comes through of like, hey, well, did you think about it this way, or could you think about your student in this role, or something like that. Just really, when we're open to that, just changes our whole perspective and our understanding of the world and the humans around us, right? So thank you for all of that.
Sure.
Yes. Thank you to everyone who came. Thank you, Lisa, for sharing your expertise and your heart with us. We're so grateful to have you in our NMSU Global family. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.